here we go. Let's get into it, Jeff. Let's keep the conversation going, talking basketball. One of our favorites, coach and author of 10 Principles of Character, Coach Gary Waters. We always appreciate you making some time for us. How you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing fabulous, Jason. It's nice here. The weather's nice. I can't ask you how it's going there, but I know it's very nice.
Well, you can ask, but we won't be happy.
Look, you spent enough years at Rutgers. You know what Jersey winters are like. So it was snowing the other day, and it's raining right now, and then it'll freeze tonight. So we're all good. You yourself are actually headed out to Cleveland. You were saying, tell us what you're going to do there. You get some interesting experiences.
Oh yes, as you know, I was a coach there for 13 years at Cleveland and Cleveland State, and the athletic director I had for the first 5 years was a person by the name of Lee Reed, close friend of mine, and he's now the athletic director at Georgetown University, and he's getting inducted in the Hall of Fame on Saturday. So I'm going to go there to support him. He was one of the reasons why I went there, or actually one of the primary reasons why I went there. And I just want to show him some support.
Coach, you talk about Georgetown. We've had Jesse Washington, who wrote a book with John Thompson in the past, to talk about the role that John Thompson had in progressing things with regard to minority hires. And
yes.
And so you yourself have been very involved in the NABC, and we're dealing with right now, especially this week, with the NFL and the trouble that it's having getting their hands around promoting qualified coaches that are different than the norm. What has it been like in college to see how things have progressed over the course of your career? And what have you thought about what is going on with Brian Flores, the allegations that he's made, and the way things seem to keep going in the NFL?
Well, when you think about what you just said, and you asked one of the statements you made was, how is it going in college? College is having the same problems. And they're trying to promote and work hard to move people of color forward, and I think everything starts at the top. We try to look at the immediate person that the coach would talk to or go for to be hired, meaning the athletic director or the associate athletic director. But it goes much higher than that, and in order for that to happen, I think there's two things has to happen. You got to change heart and you got to change thinking, because thinking is going back to the old school way. And when you think about the NFL, the old school way, did not allow coaches to go that far. I mean, that was their whole makeup. And now today we seem to have a similar problem, because I think we still have a lot of old school people at the very, very top of the sport.
Well, you mentioned what the problem is at the top with the NFL. I was surprised to hear you say that you think the problem still exists in college. Because the reason, just my opinion, is why I would think otherwise is because most of them are public universities, which are often at the forefront of dealing with issues like this, and that it would be harder for public institutions to do that. What do you see as the obstacles that still exist in college?
Well, the same thing is trying to get people at the table immediately to be a part of the process. You can't move forward unless you're in the process. And what is happening is still at the collegiate level. I think, I don't know the numbers. I remember when I left, it was only maybe 12 African-American head coaches at Division I college basketball. So, I mean, at high major, in the Power 5 conferences. So think about it, just 12 coaches and you're dealing with maybe.
Yeah, it hasn't improved much, Coach. As of 2020, according to the NCAA demographics database, just 13 of the Power 6 head coaches out of 77 were black. And so, but then you saw in 2021, 51% of the men's coaches and 47% of the women's coaches that were hired have been black. So what are the initiatives? Has something helped that jump? Is it just the attention that's being paid to it? Obviously, it's not fast enough, but it does seem like they're making a little progress over where they were, which isn't a good place.
And I think they are, and I think it's because of the focus. I think they're putting a focus on diversity. And I don't think you can only put it in athletics. I think you got to put it throughout the entire institution, so everyone thinks it's important. Because at the beginning stages, I think they want this to happen. But if only a few think it's important, it's not going to move very fast. And I know what we're talking about is we're talking about the NFL. And when we think about the NFL, think who's at the top of this, the owners and their mindset from where they come from. Think about, I think, what is it, just one in the NFL today? And that's the person who created the rule.
And if you look at the general managers or team presidents, only one, the Washington football team has a black man at the head there. So, I mean, there are definitely problems at the upper levels of these organizations in terms of diversity.
Well, and when you think about it, that's where it all starts. And if we're going to make any change or have any effect on change, it has to happen at the administrative level. I want to say at the top, but at the administrative level. And in order for someone there to think, that's important, then we need to get more people in the administrative level.
Since I have the lawyer here, I'm going to preface this by, these are all allegations, okay? I always have to make sure with my guy across the table here that I say it that way, but some of the concerning things that came out in this NFL case, one was that Brian Flores felt that the Giants had decided beforehand to hire a different coach and that his interview was sort of a sham. Obviously, the Giants will deny that, but from a coach perspective, can you talk about what preparation goes into this and how important it is for that coach to go? Because I felt like it was an unfair situation to put Brian Flores in to decide and say, should you go forward with an interview that you believe has already been given to somebody else or miss that opportunity? Why does he have to make that decision when he should just be able to go over there and pinch himself?
Well, I think it's important to be in the process and to get experience within the process. And once you are in the process, they know who you are. So maybe it didn't work out that time, but the next times it could work out for you. But you know what? We're being real here, guys, being real. In most jobs, they already know who they want. I mean, they're not waiting and saying, let's wait to the last moment and decide who comes in here and do the best job. Even though that happens sometime, but they have people ahead that they're thinking about. Okay, that now someone can go into the interview process and blow them out of the water, and before you know it, they're saying, "Okay, yeah," and that's what at Pittsburgh.
That's what happened to Mike Tomlin.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin, and so, but it usually doesn't work that way. And so, what we need is to put the faces in front of the people that are making these decisions. The problem with that is that the major face is the owner of the business that's making decisions, and you don't get an opportunity to be in front of that person. So that person literally has to have a heart for this, meaning he wants diversity within his program, or it's not going to happen.
Yeah. So what's the answer to that? So here's what I'm struggling with. As Jason said, Brian Flores spent a lot of time preparing for an interview. The Rooney Rule is well intentioned in that it does get people in front of those people to talk. But as you said, they've already made up their mind so many of those times, unless you can blow them out of the water, which isn't necessarily how most people get a job. It's who's the most qualified, not necessarily who can put on the best show. And so Brian Flores, if his allegations are to be believed, and let's just assume it for this discussion, Brian Flores went to an interview prepared to do something, and what he's saying is it was a sham. And you're not going to advance people if you have already made up your mind, because you're not going to take the process seriously. Yeah, right. You can go into it and you can sit there and you can have that discussion, but your heart's not in having the discussion. And then I don't think it advances. I don't think it's helping Brian Flores to go to interviews where people are not seriously considering him to the point that he's in the front of their mind, next time, or if a general manager goes to another organization and decides. So is the only real answer to hire lower and then have people progress through the organization so that there is that demographic, or is the answer, or a combination of it, also that ownership needs to look differently?
And that's where I'm headed toward. The ownership has to make a change, and I think it can't just be within one level. It's got to be all levels, and they have to really look at this as an important factor within their organization. Because if they don't, they'll just go through the motions, as you indicated before. Prime example. Let me just give you this. Decisions are usually made in what we call the C-suite. You've heard that before, right?
Yes.
And they're made there. And
they don't let me in there, Coach.
Pardon?
They don't let me in there, Coach.
They don't let Jason in.
And if you're not in that group of people, and you're not sitting down making those type of decisions, how can you bring diversity into that room? So what I'm trying to say is they have to think differently. They have to bring in a person that they feel, let's understand this. And another thought I had was, the NBA is doing a much better job, than many of the professional teams. We know that.
Why?
I think they've made a concerted effort to say we're gonna make a change, and the commissioner has talked to all the owners about this, and I think that's the same thing that has to happen in the NFL. But I also think I think they need to have a round table with the owners in the NBA to say, hey, why did you make this decision? And to get some understanding of this whole process, because I don't think they're even close to understanding.
Well, that's the concern, is that it seems like, look, I've worked in public relations for 20 years. I understand appearance being reality. They're trying to put on an appearance that's different than the reality. It just doesn't match. And until those paths converge, you're not going to make any progress. If you're only worried about the appearance and not dealing with the systemic issues that are causing it, you're not going to change the situation. I mean, I don't see how you make that better at that point. I did want to talk to you about power and the changes. Last time we had you on, it was right after the name, image, and likeness decision changed. There was a lot of questions about what that would be like.
Right.
I wanted to get your thoughts on what you've seen so far and what you're hearing from coaches about. Does this hurt them? Does this help them? How does it change the playing field from a coach's perspective?
Well, from a coach's perspective, what I'm hearing is that they're having a few struggles because certain groups are coming in and being strong where the others can't compete with them, and so on the recruiting trail, the top recruits are looking at where they can get the best deal at now, and now they got to change their whole thinking process, and not only in trying to get the top recruit, but they also have to have a thinking process. What about that 4-star recruit? Should we go in that direction and make that person better? So now it's not as much putting people into the different boxes. It's now you gotta teach and develop now if you want to have a successful program.
I did want to ask you about. I saw something fascinating that one of the HBCUs was doing. Grambling State announced a name, image, and likeness deal for all of their scholarship athletes. So they're going to receive annual income for the NIL to sponsor all athletes. It's the first of its kind of any school.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the wave of the future, along with some specific, athletes who have even more skill getting a larger deal where sort of everybody gets a piece of a pie and then the star athletes get a larger piece on top of that?
Well, if that's the way it's going to look like for the future, I think that's a good idea, because what happens is, you put the star athlete and give him whatever he deserves and no one else gets anything. So you bring an animosity within your organization and your team. And not only within the players, the coaches are even struggling with this within their organization. So what they're saying there is, let's let everyone, even though we got this one company that's coming in we'll split that money and share it with everyone else. If you could do that, that would be pretty good. Now you have a bunch of guys all committed to what's going on there.
Yeah, but these are the things that you're going to have to juggle, though, because what happens if you have one? We had on a former football player from a large university who said, if he had a teammate who was getting $1 million, the leaders of the team would get together and say, you should split that. And so you have these issues, plus you have coaches that have to navigate all this, and on a good way to end, because we could talk to you all day about this stuff, but yeah. you are the author of a book called The 10 Principles of a Character Coach. Is there anything that you would add to that book as a result of what you're seeing in the NIL, of what the student athlete has to navigate and how that impacts coaching?
Yeah, if I had to rewrite this book again, I'd have to put that process in there, because what's happening is it's changing the views of not only the coaches. Think about the parents and the people coming in recruiting the player in front of the parents and saying, we're going to give you this kind of money. Now parents are looking and say, hey, I got a commodity here, so we're going to work this now. I mean, that's a whole big different issue. And now what comes into play? Honesty, integrity, all these type of things that we talk about in 10 Principles. Do they have that when you add money to the process?
Well, I don't know if you're adding another chapter to that and re-releasing, but I do know you have a new book coming out. I believe you said it's kind of under wraps, getting ready to go. You want to give us an update on that before we let you go?
Oh, yes. The book that I have just completed, it's called Coaching Millennials from a Character Perspective. We're going into a whole...
Jeff could have used that book.
So I could use that for my day job. As soon as a copy is ready, let me know and I will buy it.
And I really like the format of it and the direction it's going, because in my research for the book, I mean, I had to do a lot of research and because I had to find out, how did millennials get to this point, the way they are today. And when I did all this research, I went through each generation. I mean, I went to baby boomers, I went to industrial age, and I mean, Generation X, Z, every one of them. And in the process of evaluating all this, I come to the conclusion there's one commonality that fit through all the generations. And that's the parents.
Okay.
The parents are what created what we have today.
Yeah, well,
well, now you're going to have to tell us, next time you're going to have to tell us now how we have to deal with the parents.
And people would probably say I might be one of those parents that created it in a poor way. So I'm going to have to wait to judge how I did until your book comes out. But when it does, we hope you'll come back and join us. We always appreciate your perspective. Author of 10 Principles of a Character Coach, author of his new book coming out when it does, Gary Waters, thanks so much for the time as always.
Well, thanks, Jason. Jeff, it's been very nice, and I really enjoyed the conversation. I don't know if we answered anything, and I don't know if we're going in any direction with this, but I know the NFL will have to make some decisions, because there's going to be some things coming out about this pretty soon.
Agreed.
Without a doubt. And as it goes forward, we look forward to talking to you more. You have a great one, okay?
Hey, you too, and have a great evening.
All right, thank you.